Hey there, Math 8. Today is Monday, and we are going to review a little bit of the scientific notation that we did last week. And we are going to review a little bit of the plotting of points on a coordinate plane as well. And finally, we are going to learn how to add and subtract numbers together that are in scientific notation. And all of this will not take very long, so let's get started. Let me get the camera set up. Boom. Okay. All right, so we are going to take a few notes on this. The new thing for today would be adding and subtracting numbers that are in scientific notation. So we are going to label this Notes, Section 5.4, and here we go. Adding, subtracting numbers in scientific notation. All right, so here's the big thing about adding and subtracting numbers in scientific notation. I would compare this to something you already know how to do. If I have 3x squared plus 5x squared, I can add those together and I get 8x squared. But if I have 3x squared plus 5x to the third, I cannot add those together because they are not like terms, right? This would actually be my answer. You cannot add an x squared term and an x to the third term together. When terms have different exponents on the variable, they are not like terms. They cannot be added together. Well, the same is true in scientific notation. In scientific notation, you must have like terms, which means you must have to add, subtract numbers in scientific notation must have same exponent on 10. If not, change it so it is. Okay. For instance, it is easy to add two numbers together that have the same exponent on 10. If I have 3 times 10 to the 5th plus 5 times 10 to the 5th, those are easy to add together because they have the same number on, the same exponent on 10. And the answer would be 8 times 10 to the 5th. And you can see to add those, all I do is I add what we call the a values together. 3 plus 5 is 8, but I keep the exponent the same. So that's easy to do. But what happens if I do not have the same exponent on the 10? So let's do an example of that. What if I have 7.2 times 10 to the 5th plus 5.1 times 10 to the 6th? How am I going to add those together when they do not have the same exponent on the 10? Well, I'm going to change one of them so they are the same. And it doesn't really matter which one I change. Sometimes it's easier to change one than the other. But I'm going to go ahead in this case, and I'm going to change this one. So I'm going to leave this one the same, but I would like this one to have 10 to the 6th instead of 10 to the 5th. So remember how we do that. Change 7.2 times 10 to the 5th. Exponent goes up 1. Decimal moves 1 spot. So to change the exponent, you need to move the decimal. All right? When the exponent goes up 1, you want to move the decimal 1 spot. And remember, when one gets bigger, the other needs to get smaller. When the exponent gets bigger, the number needs to get smaller. So I would move the decimal to make the number smaller. And this would become 0.72. And now my exponents are the same. Now I can go ahead and add these together. And so all you do is add the 7.2 and the 0.72 and the 5.1. When you add those together, you get 5.82, and the exponent stays the same. All right, that is example 1. Let's try another type of example that you might see on the homework. So this time we're going to add 6.2 times 10 to the 2nd plus 850. All right, this time one of my numbers is in scientific notation and the other one's not. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in scientific notation. So I would have 6.2 times 10 to the 2nd, but I need to change 850 into scientific notation. So let's see, the decimal is right here. I'm going to move the decimal 2 spots, make it 8.5. And let's see, since I moved the decimal 2 spots, the exponent would be 2. And I am now in scientific notation. Now I can go ahead and add those numbers together because they have the same exponent on the 10. Oops. So I'm going to get something times 10 to the 2nd. And of course, when I'm adding and subtracting, I just add the A values together, right? We call that the A value. 6.2 plus 8.5, and then the exponent stays the same. And that would be 14.7. And that's a pretty good answer, but it's not a totally good answer because technically it is not in scientific notation. So I would want to take this number and make it be between 1 and 10. All right, so I'm going to move the decimal 1 spot. Remember, moving the decimal always affects the exponent. When the decimal moves 1 spot, the exponent needs to move 1 spot, and they need to go in opposite directions. So as this number gets smaller, it went from 14.7 to 1.47. As it gets smaller, the exponent gets bigger. And that is now my answer in scientific notation. All right, I want to show you one more thing and we'll be done. Example 3. Okay. 5.21 times 10 to the 8th plus 1.7 oops, plus 1.7 times 10 to the 7th. Now, I want to show you, as I did before, that your calculator can do this for you. Right? I think it's good to know how to do it on paper, but I also think it's good to know how to use your calculator. So you're going to hit the mode button, right there, the mode button. And we're going to come down and we're going to want to put our calculator in this thing called science mode. So I'm going to use the arrows to scroll down to there, and I'm going to hit enter, and now my calculator is in science mode. And I will hit clear to go back to the screen. And now I could just type this in, and when you type it in, you should type it in exactly with the parentheses. 5.21 times 10 to the 8th. And make sure after you do the exponent, you use the arrow button to get out of the exponent. And you got the parenthesis. Plus 1.7, oops, forgot the parenthesis, 1.7 times 10 to the 7th. Use the arrow, parenthesis. And now, because I am in scientific notation mode, when I hit enter, it gives me the answer in scientific notation. 5.38 times 10 to the 8th. Alright, what if I want to do it by hand? Well, if I want to do it by hand, I would need to change this so it's a 10 to the 8th, because I can only add these together if they have the same exponent on 10. So I'm going to leave this one the same, but since I made the exponent get one bigger, this number needs to move the decimal to be one smaller. It would be 0.17 times 10 to the 8th. And now I'd just be adding the A's together. I would keep the 10 to the 8th, and when you add 5.21 and 0.17, you do in fact get 5.38. So there you go. We did it on paper, and we did it with a calculator. All right, that will be the new thing for today, adding and subtracting numbers in scientific notation. Plus, there'll be some review of some old skills on the homework. Good luck. See you tomorrow.